All right, so let's add some non-diatonic chords to the mix. Remember, once again, diatonic chords use notes just from the scale, right? So I'm in the key of F in this lesson, so this is all notes from the F major scale. But if I start to play a note that's outside of that scale, like if I play a C sharp, well, you know now that that chord is non-diatonic. So anytime you see a chord that has a note in it that is not part of that major scale of the key that you're working in, it's a non-diatonic chord, or if you're just playing a single note, it's a non-diatonic tone or note. All right? Let me play this progression and hear the difference now. Right? So on that C7 flat 9, see that note right there? That's non-diatonic, okay? It's not diatonic to the key of F. But the chord still is diatonic because it's a C7 chord, okay? But that single note is non-diatonic, right? It gets a little bit confusing to try and figure that out, and to be honest with you, it's not absolutely critical that you know what it is. You really know the difference between diatonic and non-diatonic at this point, all right? Now, the first thing to notice is that these chords follow the same progression as before, that diatonic clustering progression. All right, so you see the F chord in there, then you see the D minor, you see the B flat, the C, back to F. Okay, so it's the same progression. This is a good example of how you can take a traditional progression like the one that we just did, right? You might see that in church music, you might see it in whatever music that you're playing, okay? You'll find these simple progressions, right? These diatonic progressions that you want to spice up a little bit. You want to improvise around them, okay? So let's take a look and break down this progression and see what it is that I'm doing here. I'm starting with that F, and then I go to E minor 7 flat 5, A7 flat 9, to D minor 7, right? Right? Now, E minor 7 flat 5 is diatonic to the key of F, right? It's 7 minor 7 flat 5. But that A7 is non-diatonic. See that chord tone in there? Okay? And that's a good way of being able to know diatonic versus non-diatonic. If a chord tone is found in the scale, it's a diatonic chord. If a chord tone is not within that scale, then it is definitely non-diatonic. So here, the third of A7, definitely non-diatonic to the key of F, right? So, and then we move to D minor. Now the first thing to understand is that this E minor 7 to A7 to D minor 7 is what we call a 2-5 progression. Let me go through that real quickly. If I'm in the key of C and I go D minor, G7 to C, that's 2, 5 to 1. If I take that same progression, I do it in the key of F, it'd be G minor 7, C dominant 7th, or let me do this, I'll do a root position, G minor 7, C dominant 7th, to F6 or F major 7, some kind of F major chord, okay? So G minor 7, C7 to F. That is a 2, 5, 1. We would typically not voice the chords like that. We would probably do some type of inversions, okay, to make it flow a little bit better between the chords. All right, now that 2, 5, 1 progression is 2, 5 going to 1, or what we would say 2, 5 of 1. But now we can have that same 2-5 progression or same 2-5 cluster or group, all right, anywhere else. So if we want to get to the D minor, which happens to be 6 minor, we can still have 2, 5 going to D minor. You might ask the question, well, why did you go 2 minor 7 flat 5 rather than just 2 minor 7? The reason for the flat 5 is because since it's going to the 6 chord and I'm playing this 2 chord on the 7 like that, right? I play it flat 5 because notice once again B flat versus B natural. B natural is way out of the key of F, right? B flat is still in the key of F. It doesn't provide, it doesn't make it such a harsh transition to that 2 chord. Listen to the difference. Can you do it without the flatted 5? Yeah, sure, you can do that. But I like the flat 5. It also gives it more of a jazzy feel to it as well. All right. So this we would call 2/5 of 6. Okay. If we were going to, when we move on here, we go to C minor 7, right? So we have C minor 7 to F augmented 7 to B flat 7. We call that 2/5 of 4. Right? Or we might even want to specify a little bit more. It's 2/5 of 4/7. I'll get to the 4/7 in a minute. Let's talk about that 2/5 of 6 for a second. I've heard people, a lot of people actually, especially in gospel circles, refer to this as a 1-7-3-6 progression. Okay, 1-7-3-6. Now, I understand why they're doing that. All right? They're doing that because there's 1, the root down here is 7, the root right here is 3, the root right here is 6. So they're looking at the root motion. If we're just talking root motion, yes, it's a 1-7-3-6 progression. The problem with looking at it as a 7-3-6 progression rather than 2/5 of 6 is you're not getting the full benefit of being able to understand, oh, that's encapsulated into this nice little 2-5-1 cluster. Remember, 2-5-1 doesn't mean that we're always going to the 1 chord. It could be whatever the temporary 1 is, or in this case, it's 2/5 of 6. I'm just looking at that I'm looking at D almost as 1, just for right now. Just looking at it just for right now as my 1 chord. I'm trying to get to that D minor. So it's E minor 7 flat 5, A7 to D minor. Okay, there I go. I have my 2-5-1 or 2/5 of 6 progression right there. It helps if I look at it that way rather than 7-3-6 because 7-3-6 doesn't really tell me anything. It tells me what notes I'm going to be playing in the bass, right? But it doesn't tell me what kind of chord I'm going to be doing. I could be just simply be doing something like that. E dominant 7, A7 to D minor. Okay? So there's no reason I couldn't be doing that. I could do that. Sure, all right? I could do F, E minor, A minor, then the D minor, okay? Sounds a little bit weird, but when you say 7-3-6, if you don't specify what kind of chord it is, a musician is not going to know, is it a major chord or is it a minor chord? It's especially true for that 3 chord. Remember, once again, when we were talking diatonic, when we're saying diatonic, that 3 chord is naturally a minor chord. Okay? So if I say play a 7 chord and then a 3 chord and then a 6 chord, if I just saw 7, 3, and 6 written out, I'd say, well, okay, well, it's 7. I assume they want minor 7 flat 5. 3, really? You want a 3 minor? Okay, well, it's your song. I'll play it that way. And then 6 minor. Okay? It's real easy for a musician to make a mistake. Whereas if you say 2/5 of 6, now a musician knows, oh, okay, that 2 chord is going to be minor, the 5 chord is going to be some kind of dominant 7, and the 6 chord is naturally a minor chord. All right, so that's one reason. The other reason is because we can start to use these clusters. Looking at these chords as clusters helps us with our improvisation. I'm going to talk about that in 1 second when I come back in the next chapter.